in the video that in the previous video, you saw how to load the sound library with P5.js and then use sound files as a feedback event, right? So ball hits the wall, ball makes a noise, right? But not only can you play longer, things, you can also use elements of the sound to affect things inside of your sketch. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you use to measure frequency or volume or amplitude. I'm going to stick with the easiest one, which is amplitude. So this basically measures, how much change there is in apparent volume inside of the sound file from frame to frame. So if it's like kind of silent, you won't see a lot, and then if it gets loud, you'll see it move like this. And I'm just mapping this to a couple circles, so they become like a sound visualizer. So in the sketch that I've got right here, every time that we get this nice, lovely orange background, I'm going to click in a few different places. And maybe I'll just do a bunch right here-ish. And then if I press the P key... Yeah. Cool key. Wow, then we get some really loud music playing. Sorry, I had the speakers up. Just let it say it would go. But everything on here is reacting to the sound. And I've also got stop functionality with a key, and then I've got something else that'll erase all the little things, all the little visualizers in the array. But each one of these things here is essentially reacting to the sound file that's being played. So one thing that I'm going to note too is that some elements of this are behave differently depending on the browser that you're using. So there's like a pause function in the P5.js sound library. It works great in Firefox. It doesn't work at all in Chrome. Go figure. What I'm doing here is I'm just starting and stopping the song from scratch. I'll walk you through this and show you what I've got going on. Hopefully you'll find it useful, but or give you some ideas on how you can use audio as an input to change things inside of your sketch. So again, inside of my files, I've got an MP3 file right here. It's Objects Unknown by DJ Spooky from his album Rhythm Warfare, which is, I think, like 1997. Just giving credit where credit's due, right? And then inside of the index file, again, I've got the sound library loaded. And in my sketch, I've got, what I'm doing here is exactly what it says, is what you saw, and it says at the top, mapping the amplitude of a sound file to the size of circles on a screen. Right? So I'm actually going to turn the volume off on my laptop completely, just so you can see the behavior again. I'm clicking, and then I press P, and all of a sudden this appears, and if I click more times, we'll get more of them. These things right here are all responding to the volume of the sound that's playing back on my computer that I just muted so you can actually hear me. So I've got this that holds the sound file. This is a variable that holds the object that tracks the amplitude. And we'll see this used in a minute. And then I've got an array to hold every instance of the visualizer that I make. So here I probably have a few dozen that I've just clicked in different locations. So preload the sound, and then inside of the setup, we want to create a new instance of the amplitude follower, right? So you can see there's this thing called p5.amplitude, and that is a class, right? And so amp is an object that has really, one primary function, which is how loud is the sound being played at any given moment in time. Inside of the draw function, I'm drawing this orange background. It's got a little bit of opacity, which is why these things are kind of fading in and out. And then here I'm saying, and so you can ask questions about sounds, right? So if the sound is playing, then get the level of the amplitude, store that into this variable level, and then use that to determine the size of each of these circles, right? So here what I'm doing is I'm mapping the level, so this value right here, which is going to be somewhere between 0 and 1. So 0 is that there's no sound, 1 is it's like maxed out. And then what I'm doing is I'm mapping that to, so you can see right here, 0, 1, and I'm mapping that somewhere between 0 and then the width of my sketch, just, for an arbitrary number size of what this could be. And then I iterate through every element in my array. And so that's what, and I'm only doing this if there's something actually in my, inside of my bubs array. I don't want to do this unnecessarily. So I'm saying if there's something inside of the array, then start to render stuff out. And here I'm saying, I'm just looping through every element inside of there, and I'm passing this variable, the size, into the object every time I render it, because I don't know what it's going to be inside of the object, and I don't want to be running multiple instances of this amplitude function. All right, I just want to run this once and then pass that value into each of the objects. Inside of mouse pressed, saying make a new visualizer wherever the mouse is pressed. So every time I click, I push a new object into my bubs array. The key pressed right here, you can actually see this is where I'm doing a little bit of other stuff, right? So if the key is P, so if I press P, then we start playing the song. If I press S, then the song stops. If I press P, it starts over again from the beginning. It doesn't pick up from where it left off. That's what pause is for, but again, it's not going to work in this browser. And then if I press the space bar, then I just remove everything inside of the bubs array, and I erase it so I can start over fresh and start clicking in other locations. And just for completion's sake, even though you've seen like the sound parts of this now, inside of the visualizer, I've got the constructor. I pass in the X and Y position of the mouse when I click and create it. So there's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one, right? And every time I do that, I pass that into the X and Y coordinates. I've got the reason that they aren't all matched up in sync perfectly is because I've got this thing right here that scales each of the circles a little bit. So we get a little bit of differentiation. So if I click in one location like this, we'll see a whole bunch of different concentric circles inside of one another. And then each one has a random color that I'm creating. Inside of the render, I pass the size. Again, and size is determined up here by the amplitude of the sound that's being played. And so here I'm saying the size of this particular, see the sound file is now stopped, which is why all these are small and fading away. If I wanted to, I could have called soundfile.loop, and then it would have just kept on playing again. In fact, if I press the S key or the P key, it should start. Oh no, I gotta stop it and then start it again, I think. But in any case, what's going on here is I'm passing the size into the render function here. I'm multiplying that by the scale variable. So it's somewhere between 1/4 of the size to 100% of the size. And then I'm just drawing an ellipse with no fill, and off we go. So that's how you would get a sound file to play inside of as a background music or background track, right? So give it a whirl, and hopefully you find it enjoyable, useful, edifying. I don't know. There's one other thing that you can do with sound that, unless you all ask me to do so, I'm not actually going to get into, but you can use the sound library to generate sounds. It's got some built-in oscillators for square, triangle, sine waves. You could do, um, uh, DSP, digital signal processing, to create things. So if you're into like sound synthesis at all, let me know and I can do a real quick video tutorial on that. Otherwise, I think that this covers most of what folks want to do with sound.